Hey everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Jim Bob in the Weeds, where I pull weeds and ramble on about various things that I think are important and that I just want to express. And today what I want to talk about is global warming even real? Now that's a pretty deep subject. My personal belief is yes, I do believe that global warming is a real issue that is going to become a dramatic impact on our lives going forward. And by our, I mean the people alive now and the future generations to come. All right? But the problem is, it's hard to say. I mean, I understand, my belief is that yes, we do have an issue with global warming. That the climate is changing, that bad things are happening, and that we are the cause of these things. Now, what do I have to base that on? Well, that's where the problem comes in. As it stands right now, we're being lied to. All right, here we go. He must be a Republican. No, I'm actually not. And this is not a political thing at all. I really want to try and keep the politics out of this, but I got to say that we have evidence of lies on various different subjects going back a very long time, and as a result, it's really hard to take people's words or even research on a lot of important subjects that have an impact on our lives. It is my belief that there are a lot of scientific studies that are done rather than to investigate a problem and try and find an honest solution. These studies are done to prove a truth. Now, I am not a scientist, and in fact, I don't even have a college degree. I'm only one semester from getting it, but I may finish it, I don't know. But anyway, but I got a lot of common sense, I believe. And when you start doing science to prove your beliefs, you're not doing science. All right. If you do science to investigate a problem and try and figure out a solution or an answer, and an unbiased answer, that's what science is supposed to be about. But I don't believe that's necessarily what's happening in the world today. All right? Now, does that mean I don't believe in it? No, I still do. I still believe that we have a problem, that we are creating a problem with global warming, primarily related to the use of fossil fuels and the basic lack of concern with those. Now, people are starting to wake up and really start to look at what's happening in the world and seeing that, hey, we might want to do something about this before we start killing things off. And by things, I mean us, other life forms on the planet, and potentially, if it gets bad enough, could even be the planet itself. I think it would spring back. It would be a remarkably different place if we didn't do anything about it. All right. So the reason I believe is some of my personal observations. Now, of course, by that I mean, things that I have seen with my own two eyes, and things that I have seen being reported and verified throughout the world. So, and for those of you who don't believe, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just expressing my viewpoint. So, if you're not into this, turn it off, that's fine. But I do believe that we are seriously coming upon a crossroads, so to speak, in the history of humankind. But some of the things that make me think that is, first off, weather patterns. Weather patterns are changing. Now, is this change potentially natural? I don't know. It doesn't seem natural. Things that we know have gone on for a very long time have stopped happening. Certain weather patterns, like around here, normally speaking, in the summertime here in Florida, we get afternoon rains throughout the summer that last about an hour or two and then go away. Well, that hasn't been the case here this past month. We have been getting amazing amounts of rain. I don't know that we've reached record levels yet, but it's definitely unusual levels. And when you couple that with fires throughout Europe, fires pretty much all over the world, droughts in California and huge fires. We had a heat wave in Seattle area. Last year we had several 100-year weather events that only are supposed to happen every 100 years, and yet they're happening more and more frequently. Flooding, fire, all kind of craziness happen. So that is one indication that makes me think that we're doing something wrong. Another thing is the ice melt. And people, I know a lot of people, oh no, that's just natural. Well, that's the thing. See, one of the things about ice is it freezes things. And so when it freezes stuff, we can go back and look at what was frozen. So that gives us an idea about how long it's been since the ice melted down to the point where it's thawing out right now. And we can tell that by what is frozen into the ice. And we're seeing ice packs, glaciers, ice on top of mountains, the Antarctic, the Arctic, all losing large quantities of ice. And by losing, I mean it's melting off and becoming water, which is flowing into the sea and could potentially cause rising sea levels. And I gotta say, for the longest time, I'm like, you know what, there's no way that little bit of ice, and by a little bit, I mean, you know, on the global scale, that's at the top of the poles or the bottom of the planet could cause dramatic sea rise like they're talking about. But if you throw in all of the ice on top of all the mountains, and you start to say to yourself, so maybe the sea level rise could be as bad as you're talking about. And so that brings us to, well, and then there's tundra thaw. Now the tundra, you know, in Siberia, Alaska, Canada, places like that, is basically frozen dirt that has been frozen for eons. I mean, they're actually mining it apparently in Siberia and pulling frozen dead animals out of it that have been there for, you know, estimates of 40 to 80,000 years. So that ought to tell you something. Another observation. All right, so I do think it's real, but what if I'm wrong? What if this is not actually caused by humankind? What if this is just a natural occurrence that happens every so often? We just don't have it on record, or we can't show evidence that this has happened in the past. Well, that's an interesting question. Let me move the camera. Alright. So, what if it isn't real? Well, if you think about it, what's being proposed and what people are talking about doing to combat global warming, climate change, is on its surface rather dramatic, but I would submit to you that in reality this is something that's going to happen anyway. So back in the 70s, when I was a kid, and I started driving in the 70s, started buying gas in the 70s, But one of the big fears back in the 70s was not global warming, though people were starting to talk about it then. But actually the fears were more about the lack of fuel. We were afraid we were going to run out. I remember seeing people projecting that, hey, we're going to be out, we should have been out of gas by now already, according to what they were telling us back then. So we know that's not necessarily true right now, but it is a finite supply. And at some point, we are going to run out. Now imagine if that was to happen tomorrow. If we were to run out of gas and all of a sudden all the pumps dried up and we were not able to pull gas, by gas I mean gasoline, and you know, propane and other fossil fuels that we rely upon, natural gas and so on, we were not able to pull them out of the ground, what would happen to our economy, our way of life, I mean, everything around us. So I had to pause for a little while because we have a Air National Guard base here close, or Air Force Reserve, whatever it is, and they're flying F-15s. And that's another thing, that if we were to run out of gas, it would come to a screeching halt. And one of the things that makes us a preeminent power in the world is our ability to field a rather impressive and devastating Air Force. We can outfight most countries in the air, like by 10 to 1 or more. And I'm not going to get into the whole strategic side of that, but I will say that, you know, this is something near and dear to my heart because I was in the Navy for 24 years, and what I did was work on naval aircraft, which are some pretty impressive fighting machines. I'm going to move here. So I'm going to have to go around this area here because I got a huge ant pile in here. I'm going to have to do something about that. Maybe I'll make a video on it. But I will tell you, usually, if you're careful, you can pull most of it out, particularly on a hot day, because on a hot day, ants go down deeper. They hide down where it's cooler. But once you start disturbing the nest, they will swarm. And if they get you good. Sprinkle some mustard seed here. Alright, let me move. Now with the new technologies that we have, the likelihood of us running out of gas has been pretty much knocked down pretty substantially. At least for the very near future, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So, while I do believe that global warming is a thing, I'm no longer afraid that we will run out of gas and thereby change our lives. But if and when we do, because we will, it is a finite resource. If we have gotten with this progressive agenda to replace fossil fuels with more natural fuels, we'll be much better prepared to handle that situation when it arises if we have limited the use of fossil fuels for whatever reason. So that's one benefit. Even if you don't believe in global warming, you surely must understand that gasoline is not a limitless supply. Yes, there are other alternatives to fossil fuels, you know, like ethanol and so on. And I'm sure that those will get, you know, utilized in the future. And that is part of, the smaller part of the overall plan to reduce emissions. It still creates a lot of emissions. So, the big question I think we should be asking is, you know, there's a lot of changes coming out. A lot of them driven by climate change, by global warming. And a lot of people are resisting these changes, really don't want these changes to happen. And for some people, I do believe that it's just resistance to change in general. And I think that if you really look at the changes that are being proposed, now by that I mean, you know, changes to our electrical generation, and changes to the way we go about doing business as far as energy use, not political changes, because I think some of those are, well, that's another subject for another time. Yeah, look at all this. This, by the way, is what you call frog fruit. This stuff grows everywhere. It's actually really nice to walk on. The bees love it. It's a fantastic thing to have, but it pretty much smothers my food forest areas. So that's why I'm pulling it out. So I believe that one of the important questions that we should be asking ourselves is, will these changes that are being proposed do harm? Will it cause disruption? Will it cause interruptions in food cycles, in transportation cycles? Will it do long-lasting, real harm? And I think that the answer to that is, in most cases, no. It will do some harm. There will be people who will lose their jobs and have to look for others, but that happens now. I mean, I wish that I could really show you, and if you get a chance to go back and look at the difference in the employment spectrum now compared to what it was, you know, when I was first looking for a job back in the 80s. I mean, it's a huge change. You know, there were no programmers, there were no YouTube stars, there were no, well, there's some programmers, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't a major employment area. But a lot of things that exist now either didn't exist or were very, very minor in the overall scheme of things when I was young. Alright, not sure what those even are. So yeah, things have changed dramatically in the last 50 some odd years. And they're going to continue to change. And if you think that change is not going to happen, you are sadly mistaken. Change is just the nature of the universe. That's just what happens. So we know that change is going to happen, so maybe what we need to be looking at is, you know, how we can change it for the better. Alright? If these things go forward and we get more and more of our electricity needs, our power needs, from solar power, wind power, wave power, nuclear, and various other things. Though nuclear isn't cheap right at the moment, though there are some things that are coming down the pike that should lower the cost of nuclear power dramatically, and even lower the waste issue. But anyway, so these things will, in the end, I believe, result in power costing less. If you think about it right now, I mean, we have trains. I got a train track just on the other side of the road over here. Sometimes I'm sure you might have heard the train go by. They're doing construction over here on the other side of the pond right now. That's what you're hearing there. Can't do anything about that. But I think what's going to end up happening as we go forward with this agenda, as I believe we should, we're going to find that power is cheaper. Now, does that necessarily mean it's going to be cheaper for you and me? Yeah, probably not, unfortunately. But I would venture a guess that what will happen is you'll find that prices won't go up maybe as quickly once we get this whole infrastructure built. The inputs into the system are going to be much cheaper. I mean, they're for the most part natural. Now, of course, there will be repair costs and, you know, building of infrastructure costs that will be passed on to the consumer. But once that is done, you know, 20, 30 years from now, you'll probably find that power overall, well, we need to power our houses, heat our houses, cool our houses, like down here in Florida, which you may have noticed, man, I'm sweating like real bad because it is so humid. I mean, it's probably only 90 degrees, but the humidity is just incredible. But at any rate, so what should, at least theoretically, happen is in the long term, we'll find that power generation costs less, which can only be a good thing in the long term for your average consumer. And it will clean up the air. So if you think about it, the solutions to these problems that we are faced with, whether they're real or not, whether they're made up, and we're being lied to about that too, it will still be a benefit to us. So I think that, you know, the solution, while it is painful to begin with, in the end is not going to be harmful. I think that the solutions will be beneficial regardless of whether or not the problem is real. I know right now some of you are saying, so what you're saying is it's not real. No, hang on, calm down. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to tell you that there is no such thing as global warming. Alright? Because I really do believe, I do believe that global warming is a real thing. I believe that climate change is a real thing that's going to devastate our world if we don't do something about it. And that is based not upon what the scientists are telling me, because I don't know if I can trust them, or what the government is telling me, because I don't believe them for about 90% of everything they say. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I believe in government. I think we need a government. But I think that we need to get a handle on our government, because not only are they lying to us, but they're defending the ability to lie. So that's another story, and like I said, another video. Most ways that people are talking about changing, like for instance, I'm trying to change my carbon footprint. And a lot of the things that I have done here to improve upon my carbon footprint are actually saving me money. You're like, what? Hang on. Well, I mean, let's take this for example, what I'm doing right now. This is a garden. Well, this is actually my food forest. And by building a food forest, I have improved the climate. All right, where there used to be just grass, I have planted trees. Where there used to be open dead soil, I have put wood chips. So I'm doing everything I know how to do to try and improve the environment directly around me, which in turn should improve the rest of the world. I mean, I can't do all of it, obviously, but I can make an impact. And most of these things that we can do will save you money. I don't buy vegetables. I do buy fruit because it's hard to get certain fruits, and my food forest isn't fully grown yet. But that saves me money as well as improves the planet. You know, I'm generating oxygen. Oh, is that garlic? Sure is. I don't know if I can replant that. Let's see if it grows back. But let's take this for example. I've grown my own garlic. And by growing my own garlic, that means I don't got to buy it. And you know where most garlic comes from? China. So wait, what? Yeah, most garlic that is sold in the United States actually comes from China. Now, I'm not trying to say that it's a bad thing that we buy from China, but it does have to be shipped from China. That means that the garlic that I put in my pasta dishes, or just about everything for that matter, had to be picked by somebody in China where it probably wasn't grown as sustainably as what I'm doing. There was probably fertilizer involved and bug killers and so on, all of which are harmful for the environment. And then it had to be put on a ship in a container. Well, actually it had to be trucked to the ship because I'm sure it wasn't grown right there by the edge of the ocean. Put on a truck, shipped to the ship, and then that ship had to, you know, take that garlic and a bunch of other things and bring it over here all the way across the ocean. And you know, I live in Florida, so I'm about as far from China as you can get. So all of that costs fuel and costs money. Whereas I can take last year's garlic and plant the cloves from last year's garlic and grow more garlic this year and basically provide for myself all the garlic I want for free. Doesn't cost me anything. That's just one of the ways. If you grow a fruit tree in your backyard, all right, that tree will take carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen. It will gather up a shit ton of carbon, put it in the trunk and in the leaves, and store that carbon so that it will no longer be in the atmosphere. And in turn, I get to harvest the fruit and I get free fruit. Saves me money. Now, it did cost me a little bit for some of these trees, but most of the ways that we are talking about saving the planet will also save us money. Solar power, for example. I'm, one of these days, going to put solar on my roof if I can. I got to talk to my association and all that, but I believe they'll let me. Plus, in the state of Florida, there's a constitutional law that says that I have the right to put solar on. So I believe I should be able to get that done, but putting that on my roof will give me free power that I won't have to pay for. So a lot of these things that we're talking about doing will, in the long run, save us money. There is some upfront costs, some layout that has to happen in order to make this happen. But as time goes forward, you save more and more money. Like I have a water heater that is really cool. It actually works as like a reverse air conditioner. It sucks the heat out of the air and pumps it into the water, rather than using straight up electricity or using you know, with a heating element. So it saves me a ton of money, like 25-30 bucks a month. All right, and it uses way less energy. That's why it saves me money. All right, so a lot of these solutions will help us save the planet. And then the last thing that I think that all of this is going to lead us to is more self-reliance. If I have a garden, that means I can grow my own food. If I can grow my own food, it means I don't have to have it shipped in, which is great for the environment. It's grown organically, so I don't use pesticides, I don't use fertilizers, so that's great for the environment. So it's a win for the environment, but it's also a win for me because I get free produce. You know, I may lay out some money for seed, but most of the seed I'm collecting. And if worst comes to worst, things go to shit, we completely run out of gas and all we have is diesel trucks to haul food around, well, guess what? I'm reliant. I'm self-reliant. I am able to grow my own food. And that's a fantastic thing. Same thing if I put solar cells up on the roof and get a battery, then if for some reason we run out of the ability to make electricity, I will be self-reliant in that I can create enough power to get by to do the things I have to do All right, and I can do all of that without having to have outside inputs. So, is global warming real? I do believe it is. And I think that if at this point in history you think that it isn't, I think you're wrong. I think you need to wake up. I don't care what your political views are. You just need to look at the facts. The solutions are important because they will solve the problem of global warming in the long run. But more importantly, a lot of these solutions will save you money in the short term and create a sense of self-reliance where you are able to take care of you and yours without having to worry about whether or not the system is going to bring you what you need. All right, so is global warming real? I believe it is. All right, should you do something about it? I really think you should. All right, now I think I should. I think I will. I think I am. And what you do is on you. I cannot force you. Can't convince you necessarily. But I would hope that you would look at this, listen to what I've got to say, maybe take a lesson from it, maybe just give some more thought to what's actually going on. And please, 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 don't let your political views, whatever they may be, influence you about something that has no politics, that has nothing to do with politics whatsoever. Think about it logically, think about it intelligently, and I think you'll find that maybe you too should be doing more to help save the planet. All right, thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor, give me a like and a subscribe if you like this format. And if you don't, that's fine. I'm not making any money on this anyway. Oh, I keep pulling the garlic out. But either way, give it some thought, and most importantly, grow something. Not just for you, but for the planet. All right, thanks once again.